Good morning. Wanted to start this morning with this Psalm of quotes by Hildegard. So there was a handout on your way in. I hope everyone has one. And we'll divide it. How about the front part of the room will be choir 1 and the back part of the room choir 2. Maybe this table go with the back and this table go with the front. And then there's some alls. I hope the people watching online, I did not send this ahead of time, so I hope you can understand the words. And so we pray a psalm of quotes by Hildegard. Dare not to declare who you are. It is not far from the shores of silence to the boundaries of speech. The path is long, but the way is steep. You must not only walk there, you must be prepared to leave. Everything that is in the heavens, on earth, and under the earth is penetrated with connectedness, penetrated with daily-ness. We shall awaken from our dullness and rise to mercy or justice. If we fall above the creation, deeper and deeper, we will respond to its engagement with passion. Glance at the sun, see the moon and stars, gaze at the beauty of the creators, and think, God has arranged everything in the universe in consideration of everything else. As at the same time, Mother, she is Mother of all that is natural, Mother of all that is secret. She is Mother of all. What contained in her are seeds of all. Good people, most royal being courtesy, rooted in the sun, you shine with radiant light. In this circle of earthly existence, you shine so brightly, it surpasses understanding. God loves you. You are encircled by the values of the mystery of God. The truly holy person who welcomes all that is earthly. May you be drenched with the longing for peace, and may justice blossom on earth. Even in a world that's being shipwrecked, remain brave and strong. With my mouth, God says, I kiss my own chosen creation. I uniquely, lovingly embrace every image I have made of the earth's grain. With a fiery spirit, I transform it into a body to serve all. Amen. These quotes just give an idea of the breadth and the depth of Hildegard's teaching, and really how difficult it is to understand a lot of it. Also, if you've read Scivius, it's tough going, and yet there's these beautiful parts, and we start to understand more and more of what she taught. So I want to begin by telling the story of Hildegard. Hildegard was born in 1098. And again, you'll have a handout with this information on it. She dominated the 11th century, which was a time of political and church instability. At 8 years old, she was given into the care of Jutta of Sponheim, who was a noble woman living as an anchoress
attached to the monastery of Saint Disibode. So they were walled in, attached to this Benedictine monastery. As Hildegard grew and more women joined them, they transformed this anchorage into a small cloistered Benedictine community within the abbey. At the death of Jutta, Hildegard was elected leader or magistra, teacher of the cloister. She was 38 years old. And Hildegard made important changes. She was chosen by the abbot for this position, for that position of superior, but she would not accept it without a vote from her community. So she requested the vote. They were taking control of their own lives as women. Jutta's spirituality was very penitential and included very severe asceticism, which actually led to her early death. We would say that she abused her body. Hildegard rejected this and led her community in a healthy and healthful way. Hildegard's emphasis on health, on herbs and medicines might have been shaped by her rejection of that severe asceticism, the suffering that she saw it cause in her friend and teacher. Hildegard rejected a negative view of the body and was criticized for beautiful clothes and jewelry that she and her sisters wore for feast days. They celebrated the feasts with body and soul. She said, "Why should not the virgins of Christ dress up on Christmas or Easter?" So, but you can imagine in a penitential time, this was not received well always. When she was about 43, she heard a call to write down her visions. She had been having visions since she was a child and told very few people about them. But at 43, she heard this call to start writing them down. She resisted. She refused to do it, and she became very ill, near death. The illness left when she agreed to write them down. So there's a strong message from the Spirit. So at 43, she began to write down the visions that were Scivias, that became that book, Scivias. She sought and received affirmation from church leaders who told her to continue writing. Now, she has had no formal education. Her only education was inside the cloister, inside the walled-in cloister of this monastery, books that that she could get the monks to give her through the window. She had no formal training, and she really doubted herself in many ways. So she sought affirmation. She sent some of her writings to Bernard of Clairvaux, and he sent them on to Pope Eugenius, who had them read at the Council of Tyr. The official word came back to Hildegard that she was to keep writing. Hildegard then received a vision telling her to move from Disibodenberg and found a new monastery at Rupertsberg. So she told the abbot that she had a vision and that they needed to leave. And the abbot refused it. So this led to years-long conflict with the abbot, and finally Hildegard became ill, deathly ill, on her deathbed. The abbot relented, and then she recovered. So there's that pattern in her life of when she tried to block the Spirit, it affected her physically. Hildegard was able to leave and also continued demanding until the sisters received the dowries till the sisters received the dowries as they left, so that they had some money to start with. So the money that was given to St. Disibode when the women entered, Hildegard and the community said, that's our money, we need that. And they kept fighting with the abbot until he relented and gave them the money. When they went to Rupertsberg, they were basically starting from scratch. It was an old building, it was not winterized, they were very poor and desperate. And yet the move turned out to be a time of great creativity and life and growth for the community. Hildegard started writing music for their liturgy and started writing chants and antiphons. She wrote plays. She wrote the first morality play. She wrote books on science, books on healing. They established a second monastery across the Rhine at Eibingen, and that monastery continues to this day. That's where the main archives of Hildegard are. She was living the greening verdancy that she preached. She talked about greening, that in the spiritual life we were called to this moist, creative, bursting with life kind of growth that connects us to all creation. So there's this life spirit, life passion in all beings. And when we are spiritually healthy, when we are connecting with grace, we are in that greening, we are in that verdancy. And their community really showed it in what they were able to accomplish when they moved to Rupertsberg. Remember, before this, they did not have their own liturgies. What they did was they had a window onto the church where the men prayed. So they could listen to the liturgies and they could maybe sing along in their own cloistered space, but it was not their liturgy. So you can see why they really flourished when they came to their own space. When Hildegard was 60, she began the first of 4 extensive preaching tours up and down the Rhine River, mostly preaching reform of the church and the clergy. Her extensive correspondence with church and political leaders took them to task. So she chastised the emperor for appointing anti-popes. She chastised the popes for abdicating their responsibilities. She chastised her mentor, Bernard of Clairvaux, for his encouragement of the Crusades. She was not making friends in high places, but she did this 4 times, 4 speaking tours. She was that committed to church reform and saw herself as connected to the broader church outside her monastery. At 80, she endured her most severe conflict with the church. There was a young man had been buried in the monastery cemetery. He had been excommunicated, but then had reconciled with the church before his death. The Bishop of Mainz, that's their local church, did not know or believe that he had been reconciled, believed that he was still excommunicated. So he demanded that this young man's bones be exhumed and not buried in blessed ground. She and the sisters refused, and they went so far as to hide the grave. You know, they dug up the grave so they all looked like they were new. So you couldn't, so that no one would be able to find where this young man was buried. The community was placed under interdict, which means they were denied the sacraments, all sacraments, and they were not allowed to sing the divine office. They could gather and recite the words of the Psalms, but they were not allowed to sing the divine office. Hildegard and the community obeyed the orders of the interdict, but they wrote many scathing letters about the suffering that it caused, especially the suffering of not singing. For Hildegard and the community, this was a conscience stance. They were listening, they believed, to the voice of God. They had everything to lose and nothing to gain by protecting this young man's bones. Their only gain was to keep their integrity and their faithfulness to the word of God as they heard it. After a year of Hildegard writing to people higher than the local bishop and getting testimony and witnesses to confirm that he had indeed been reconciled with the church, the interdict was finally lifted. Hildegard died 6 months later. When we think about Hildegard as a mystic, we know about her visions because she wrote about them in Scivias. We know that her life was grounded in the scriptures and the Psalms from the music that she wrote. We know that the energy and the vitality she experienced was the experience of grace, and that she brought much good to her community and to the local area. She participated in healing and in reconciliation. She poured herself out for her community, her church, and for all. Which brings us to Hildegard's music. We have some, probably the most beautiful messages that we have about the power and the grace of singing are from the letters that Hildegard wrote when her community was under interdict. And the handout that you get, the backside has those quotes. But just a few of them. My new song must float like a feather on the breath of God. There is music, there is the music of heaven in all things, and we have forgotten how to hear it until we sing. So in singing, we can hear the music of heaven in all things. When the words come, they are merely empty shells without the music. They live as they are sung, for the words are the body and the music, the spirit. So the antiphons and the chant that Hildegard wrote is only one of the things that's being rediscovered in our time. And the way of chanting and her music, when it is sung, takes people to a different state. It's the breath work needed to sing the antiphons that Hildegard wrote and to sing her music is a very disciplined breath work that does tend to, it's a meditative practice, it's a contemplative practice that puts people into a different contemplative state. So it is being rediscovered. We know that it's only recently that Hildegard was finally officially canonized as a saint and then declared a doctor of the church. And that was by Pope Benedict, the German Pope. The German Bishops' Conference, at the constant instigation of the Benedictine sisters in Erie, So the Benedictine sisters in Eibingen for centuries have advocated for Hildegard to be recognized, to be officially canonized and recognized as a doctor of the church. They convinced the German Bishops' Conference to plead for that also. That did not happen under earlier popes, but it did under Pope Benedict. So it was only in our time that she officially has a feast day in the church and is recognized as a doctor in the church. Some of her Trinitarian concepts in Scivias are I think the deepest and the best we have. And her sense of connection with all of creation is a message that's very important to us right now in climate crisis. As you can tell from this psalm of quotes, I mean, she saw the connectedness of all creation and the divine in all of creation. So I wanted us to have a prayer experience with chanting, and it is very difficult to sing her chants. So what we're going to do is listen to her, one chant of hers that's about 5 minutes, and then I'm going to put on another modern chant by Robert Gass, which is an ancient mother chant, which talks about that divine energy in all of creation. And that comes with a video. So we'll listen first to this, and then we'll have a pause, and then I'll put on the other video. You can join in the singing. I'd encourage you to try to join in the singing with the second one. It's very easy. It's Ancient Mother, I hear you calling. Ancient Mother, I hear your song. And then when that finishes, that's the end of the conference, and we can leave in silence.
There's one simple hearing hack anyone can use to improve their hearing almost overnight.
This starts very quiet with you.